sunny, but a little bit chilly. Autumnal morning here in the outskirts of Wokingham. We are in here again today. I've got some wobbly stuff to sort out. We'll get in there and we'll have a look, and I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to use some bonding coat, thistle bonding coat, to straighten up a couple of bits, and we've got like a bulkhead. I'll show you. Let's get in there and have a look, shall we? Only problem is the guy's got the radio on in there, and I have to be careful of copyright. So I'm out here talking and in there, and then gonna have to edit some copyright-free music over the top of this video, just like usual. All right, let's get in there and have a look. Okay, so we just went in and had a quick look. So some of that wall on the doors you come in is very, very wonky. They was gonna tape and joint it, but I said, they said, okay, right, let's plaster it, just try and straighten it up. So that's probably what we're going to tackle. It's hard for it to come out on video because I've always got it on fisheye, so it kind of curls things anyway with the fisheye lens on the camera, like a wide angle. So that obviously that little bulkhead that comes across the other side, on the other side of the room, that's all swimming in and out as well. There's two ways you can try and tackle that. Now you can try and rule that, but it's on an external corner, so you can try and sort of use a stiff rule. You can't be using no flexi rule because it's just going to follow the contours. You need a stiff rule, a hard rule to do things like that. But where it's on an external corner, I need to get the bottom because the bottom's swimming around, and also the fascia part of it is swimming around this way as well. So you can try and rule that and get that straight, and then fix a bead to your straightened area, which is going to be a little bit difficult because there's not much room to maneuver there. So there's that way you can do it, or you can, because I'm quite often mechanically fixing the thin coat beads to corners like that, but what we can do is actually stick the beads up with a bit of stiff multi, and then afterwards, once that's kind of set, you can get some mechanical fixes in there if you wish, if you think it's going to be a bit heavy in places and possibly can fail because of the weight of it. But yeah, it'd be nice to get those beads stuck up there, because then we can get a level on those beads, get them as straight as we can. We're not going to get it perfect, but we're going to, because it's snaking in and out, there's a lot of chop in it. So what we can do is kind of just ease that round and make it much nicer to look at. So what we're going to do is get the bead up. We're going to stick the bead. We've got no mechanical fixing up there, because if you mechanically fix it, then you're just going to pull the bead into the contours, and you know there's no point in doing that. So we are going to stick them, and we're going to use the straightness of the bead to form that external corner, and that will give us a guide to come off of. The only problem is those beads apparently are extremely old, and I'm going to assume they've been stored lent up at an angle, because every single one of them in that box is completely warped, as I just showed you. So that kind of eliminates that, doesn't it? So the guy here said he's going to go and get some decent beads that are straight, and in the meantime, whilst I'm waiting for him to do that, I'm going to start tackling that other larger wall on the other side of the room. So that is the way we're going to do it. We have formulated a plan of action, and now it's time to apply that plan. So first things first are going to be knocking up a bit of bonding, and I like to add a few handfuls of multi-finish to it, especially if you can be rolling it off and feathering it out. Just helps that bonding just be a little bit more sticky and a little bit nicer to roll off. It doesn't really like being rolled off. It's more of a hardwood thing, but going over plasterboard, straightening plasterboard up, well, normally, you know, bonding should be okay sticking to plasterboard, but I just feel more comfortable putting a few handfuls of multi-finish in there, just to make sure that really does stick to the plasterboard. And yeah, and you can kind of feather it out a little bit more.
You wanna do, give me everything you got. I just wanna try to get you in the mood. I just wanna hit your spot. I wanna get low, wanna get low. I wanna go down, stay, kissing your feet, and you make me crazy. Tonight, you're gonna give it to me right. Give me everything that you got to give. Baby, show me the light. Wanna go down, stay, kissing your feet, and you make me crazy. Now I wanna go downstairs, kissing your feet, and you make me crazy.
Time for a little chat again. Okay, bonding, thistle bonding coats, not to be confused with bonding compound, which is for sticking plasterboard. It's very sensitive to dirty water. Should you you know, be mixing back up into already dirty bucket, it can go right off on you very, very, very quickly. So if you do want some playtime with it, make sure you clean all your tools in between you're knocking up buckets of, you know, the bonding stuff, and use fresh water. And that will give you some playtime, because it does pick up quicker anyway. What else was I going to say? So we got that wall all done. I've sniffed out the worst bits. We can do the rest with the trowel and the multi-finish. Now, because I've got that other side to do, I can leave that alone now, and I can start playing around with those beads. And hopefully by that time, by the time I finish messing around with those beads, that bonding on that other side should have picked up enough for us to start setting it with some multi-finish. Another little tip that almost just happened in there. We got a young lad in there working with us. Shay's in with us here today. I haven't shown him much. I'll see what I've done with the edit. He came in a little bit later. But yeah, there's another young lad here, and I just happened to be standing on hop up in front of the doorway, and he ducked down behind me and slipped out underneath my hawk, and I was almost bringing the trowel down. Now, a little word to the wise: always be careful of a plasterer standing on a hop up with a big trowel, especially a 20-inch trowel like the one I've got. If you're going to be passing through or squeezing through past him, just let him know you're there. Just say, what, just coming through, mate, you know what I mean? Because it'll be sod's law, especially if the plasterer's doing a ceiling or something like that, and they're like, yeah, you'll be putting on, and like after a while, you might need some blood to come back in your arm. So quite often you'll drop your arm down, and then, and of course that big trowel sticks out the back by your waist, and that could quite easily be your face height, you know, if they're standing up on a hop up and you're standing behind them. It's like going behind a horse, you know, you don't go behind a horse. So be careful of a plasterer with a very, very sharp trowel in his hand, especially if he's standing on a hop up and you need to get through a doorway, such as what I've just described. Now, any long serving plasterer, I would say 99.9% of them have a scar from a trowel. Mine is on my left knuckle. I got caught by a guy, an Irish fella, Jim McHaggerty. Years ago. I was only 18 and we was prattling around. He had a trowel and he was flicking some plaster at me off his hawk, and I put my hand up to kind of stop it. I was only the labourer. I put my hand up to stop the gear, and on a ching noise I felt it, and cut a long story short, I worked the rest of the day. They took me to hospital because I could see a little white worm in the cut and stuff, and next morning I was waking up with my arm all bandaged up because I'd had to go to surgery to stick the stitch tendons together and stuff, and then I had to have a plaster cast put on for the next few weeks or something with my finger, not this hand, the other one, with my finger, because it caught me on this knuckle here. And so for the next couple of months I was walking around with pointing at things, and it was an ongoing joke. It stopped pointing at me, blah 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 blah. So yeah, be careful. Lots of plasterers will have a trowel scar somewhere on their body, and it's one of the reasons they, you know, you never put the trowel down on its side leaning on handle with the blade up at an angle, because that, you know, that is very, very dangerous sharp edge to leave exposed like that. So you always put a trowel down flat. So yeah, be careful of plasterers with sharp trowels in their hands. Don't walk behind them. Treat them like a finicky horse. Now I can see with my eye that is wobbly all over the place. I'm not sure how well it's going to come out on the video. Now the issue we got here was we haven't got a very good edge here either, and because we're going to be trying to stick this up, this is going to dry the plaster out far too quick, and there's going to be quite a bit of weight on there as well. So I think it's going to be a good idea, just with your brush, just wipe a little bit of PVA on this cut edge there, just to take the bite out of it, because by the time the bead gets up there, so the bead's going to sit like this. If this came down and was a nice corner, it'd be a lot better, but that's going to add quite a bit of weight, considering we're not going to be able to get any mechanical fixings in this. Okay, so we have like a combination of using my rule to bang up against those beads. It's like get them up, get them close, cast your eye down it and see where they're kinking and pulling around, and you'll have particular trouble where the joints are. So keep all the machine edges of your beads together, all the nice neat cuts, keep them together, and that's probably where you'll get a pimple either way, so that's where you need to pay attention. And it's a bit pot luck when you've got something as wobbly as that, because ideally you want your two end beads to fit on like a high point, so you know they sit together. So if they're on a low point, then you know it can be difficult to get the joints to line up and things like that. So it's not absolutely perfect. I can't get it perfect. It's too bendy. There's no way you can get that perfect. But what we've done is just averaged it around, so it's not as bad as what it was previously to that. He's left this over from laying down his ceiling. Look, can't throw that away, can we? I think I might put it across the top up here, since this fascia part isn't too bad. I might have a bit left over to try and start packing this out down the bottom. Looking alright.
Fucking knackered though, not feeling 100% at the moment. See, my throat's actually quite clear at the moment. My throat's alright at the moment. I've not been vaping all day. Right. Not had time to vape.
Well, yeah, used to that.
But yeah, it's going alright. Just about keeping up with it.
Good.
I was panicking a little bit when you had that window open, because I couldn't get it open, and the draft was sending it off.
It's still got this little window open here, that will cause...
Yeah, I need that closed.
There we go.
Is it sending it off? And as much time as possible on there.
Alright, okay, so Shay's in there, working by himself. This is that bonding we put up earlier. You see we've got all sorts of bobbles and knobbles all over it from where I've just ruled it. I haven't deviled it up with a float or anything like that. So all I'm going to do is just get my trowel and scrape those worst bits off. Now the problem we're going to have now over there is, depends when we're going to hit this wall with multi-finish. I was thinking about getting on today, but then Shay came out with that bit that I just showed you, and I used it up there on that awkward stuff. So what's going to happen now if you try and set this is this bonding is going to have higher suction than the actual plasterboard. So I think what I'm probably going to do is maybe set this tomorrow, but today I'll get it all prepared, scrape those protrusions off as I mentioned, and then I have got some PVA here, PVA, SBR, some sort of priming agent you're going to need. Just to kind of bring that suction rate back in alignment with each other. So yeah, I'll just douse all this bonding up with a good coat of PVA, I think. And just carry on messing around with this area up here. I've got some more bonding. This area underneath is a little bit thicker in places, and where Shay come out with that leftover multi-finish, it was picking up, so it was quite stiff anyway. I thought, well, okay, right, let's have a look. It could probably go on there. So I've changed my plan on what I'm doing today, and I've just got that on there. So, yeah. Just carry on carrying on. As I've mentioned quite a few times before, part plastering is knowing when not to do anything. So I've kind of, because we're using that stiff 20 by 5 carbon steel trowel, I've kind of got this in a pretty good shape as it is already. But the problem is, because some of it's deep, we're going from deep to thin, and you see in areas, even though it's quite stiff, it's sagging under its own weight. So there's not much point in touching this until it picks up a little bit. Otherwise we'll just end up upsetting the structure of the plaster, and we'll bring the smaller particles to the surface and all the fats, and it will get more and more ripply and distorted and just won't be very nice. So we just got to leave it alone until it picks up a bit. Just in case you don't know, Shay is my son, and I have taught him. He has been my Padawan for a couple of years, and a few months ago he's kind of gone out by himself doing his own bits and pieces. And this little motor he's got set up now, his little setup. So yeah, today he's just here under his own steam, doing his own bits and pieces. So we're just working separately. I'm just leaving him to his own devices. And that device has been left very dirty indeed. Look at that. So this has picked up quite a bit now, and what I am going to do, this is a sponge float, but look, I'll leave them quite dirty, so they're more like a bit of a regular float, but they still got the sponginess to them. I'm going to rub a sponge float over this to straighten this up a little bit, just to liven that surface up and take off any undulations that we don't want, and try and like give it a bit of a flatten. And then we'll put another coat over it afterwards. So initially when you saw me put it on, you saw quite often I had my trowel this way and I had this way as well, depending on how deep it was and how the bead was affected and whatever. So what I'm probably going to do with this is bring it this way across, and then when we go to put the second coat on, we're going to use that 20 by 5 carbon steel, and we're going to come down this way, so that then we're concentrating on this top line, this one up here, because by coming this way we should have sorted out this line because it's coming up to the bead. And then for the second coat, like I say, because if we come along this way, we might have some waves going in and out this way. Okay, so by coming down this way, once that first coat has gone off a bit and we put the second coat on, that should feel any of these waves going this way. Up here is particularly tricky because look, we're behind this level. There is a pelmet that's going to come up and cover this, so we only really need to worry about this higher angle up here. So we're bringing it up to this sort of condition. Look. Okay, right, so we need to let this pick up for a smidge because we've livened it up again, and we're going to put a little bit more plaster over it, and as I say, coming down now in this direction to really concentrate on this top angle here.
Well, my watch is still clean, isn't it?
You're going to charge them for that meterage you got all over you?
Yeah, I meant to get it on the wall, not on myself.
I'd say no, it doesn't need another trowel, it's pretty good shape. Maybe a little bit greasy. No, it's fine.
Couple of tiger marks in the middle.
That's nothing, it's just as it's starting to set. I can't really see anything to complain about. Apart from if you haven't cleaned your lights out.
Yeah, I ain't done cleaning, I need to scrape the floor and do the lights. And get rid of the walls as well. Yeah. Take a break.
Okay, so we are pretty much finished with this little fascia bit. Yeah, it's not looking too bad. I'm gonna float this area out. Look, I'm not gonna get that. Look at the depth of this. That's how much the bead is hanging over on this particular section here. It gets better as we go down. But yeah, I think that is the next thing to do. Knock up some floating, and we're gonna rule this bit. So sometimes it's hard to show. It looks like it's curling around, but it's the fisheye. It's the wide angle lens bending that round. Let's have another look. Hold on. Is probably get a little devil float over this just to help flatten this and buff it up. I see, look, it's on the thicker areas. In the meantime, look, I've just been PVAing up this previous stuff that we bonded up. I'll probably give it another coat of PVA since that's what we are using today. PVA by Silkerbond Contractors PVA. Quite often I'm using SBR as well these days, combination too, but you know, PVA is good enough I think on these particular areas because it doesn't kill quite so much suction as SBR. SBR might a little be just a bit too much overkill for this in particular. Okay, so as you can see, the devil float has been across it. And again, because you've livened up that surface, you need to let that pick up again. Okay, have a look at this thing. This is called a plasterer's iron. It's primarily for floating, so it's a bit of a thing of the past really. It's kind of like a twitch, so when you float your wall out, you run this up and down the internal, which colours it out really nicely. But because we've got these beads up here which aren't really designed to take bonding, etc., and we've ruled out over it, there's a chance we could be bleeding over the top of this visible part of the bead here. So we're going to take this and run this across, kind of like quirking this corner out. Giving enough depth for the plaster to sit in behind this little ridge of the bead here. Again, just like before, when it picks up, you take the trowel and just cut out your internals and stuff and take off any unwanted protrusions. So there we go, look, plastering is just like a box of chocolates, isn't it? Yesterday we did a 45-metre ceiling by ourselves with no retarder. Today, what did I do? Probably about 50 pence worth of meterage. As far as settling's going anyway. So yeah, I was planning on, I just did it as it was. I might have got one of those big walls on today, but Shay came out of that bit, so I ended up just fiddling around with awkward stuff. But tomorrow we're set up for quite a big hit in there. Shay's got a couple of walls to do in his room down the bottom, and I can mess around in that big room and start taking out those long flanks. So we've got all that to look forward to. I'm going to go home, I've had enough. Probably get this video edited and see my lovely wife Judy. Right, alright guys, see you on the next video. Won't be too long. Take it easy.